are you all? I hope you all are doing very good, very fine. Are you enjoying the class sessions? Like this is the third session of this chapter. We have completed the two parts of this chapter, and it is the third part of this chapter which we are going to complete. And after that, your whole chapter is going to be complete. That is the combustion and flame. So, my students, like you have watched all of these two videos, and I hope you got your like all your doubts clear in that videos. Everything is going good, I hope. So, starting with today's lecture, student, is just that before. Okay, fine. Actually, today I was thinking to ask you something that, like, we have done with the two parts of this chapter. So, I just want to, like, do one simple type of quiz so that I can come to know whether my students are getting anything or not. So it's like that, if the whatever we have learned in our last two chapters, that is the combustion, we have learned how do we control fire, we have learned about like what is flame or what are the parts of the flame which we have come to know. So students, like in the combustion, if I ask you what's the combustion, so I hope like my students have watched those videos like by paying your all of your attention, so that you know this thing that the combustion is a reaction in which the carbon compounds, or we say that some of the fuels, combustible fuels or combustible substances, they undergo the combustion in the presence of the oxygen, and when they heat up, so there is the formation of the carbon dioxide is evolved out in the atmosphere along with heat and light. So this is the combustion, student. Okay, now if we talk about flame, so like in the last class we have discussed all of these about flame, that flame is one of the visible part of the fire which we come to see. Like we have taken the example of candle, and even though we have studied about its structure as well, that the flame has been three parts. One is the outermost zone, one is the middle, and the one is the innermost. So if I ask you that among these three, which one is the hottest part? So I hope my student also having the answer of it. So that if we are studying together, so we are getting each of the answer of each and every question. So it's just that the outermost part is the hottest part, which is of the blue color. Exactly, student. And the middle is the, you can say that it's the less hot. We can say that it is less hot as compared to outermost part, and it is having a color of what? It is having a yellow color. And if we talk about innermost, it is the least hot part of that flame, and it is having a black color. So this is the structure of the flame as well as, student. And we have discussed some of the question as well related to this topic, that I have discussed one of the question with you, that if we are having a heap of leaves, which and two heap of leaves, one is dry and one is wet. So which is catching fire more easily? So students, we come to know that that water changes the ignition temperature of particular material, whether it can be a wood or whether it can be any leaves or something like that. So that what will happen, that it will not catch the fire easily. So the materials which are having a very low ignition temperature, they undergo the combustion very easily. So that is why the heap of the leaves which are having the water, so that means they are having some moisture in it, due to which they will not catch the fire easily. So that is the combustion and flame which we have covered up till now. So students, like now it is the last part of this chapter. That means today we are going to wrap up this whole chapter, that is the combustion and flame. Fine. So the topics which we are going to cover today is that we are going to study about fuel. That what is the fuel? What are the characteristics of the good fuel? What is fuel efficiency, and what is the calorific value? So students, we are going to cover up these three things. Okay. Now starting with the chapter that we have already done so much thing about, like combustion, flame. You know this thing, that what is combustible substances. So student, combustible substances, you can say that they can also be called as a fuel. For example, students, like whenever we are having Okay, let's take the same example, that whenever we go to campfiring, or like in the winter season, we generally used to get heat from the wood logs by putting them on fire. So what we use that these things we don't do, because we are like, our parents not allow us to go near to it or do some kind of things, because they thought that we are small, so we can't handle it exactly. But they, what they do, that when they put up that wood logs like this. So this, oh, just imagine, this is the wood logs. These are the wood logs. I hope my students will not make fun of my drawing. And when we are going to burn these wood logs, what they will do, they just put some of the kerosene oil over it. Kerosene oil. Okay, so due to putting up this kerosene oil, what will happen? Kerosene oil is a fuel, even though wood is also a kind of fuel, because wood undergo the combustion. It is a combustible substance. Even though kerosene is also a, you can say that it is a combustible substance. But students, what happened, that the kerosene oil is having a very less ignition temperature as compared to wood, due to which kerosene oil will catches the fire easily, and that's how there will be more of the flame, heat, and light coming out of it, and that is how we are getting heat from it, and we are enjoying that heat in the winter season. Exactly. So that's the thing. So the students, the things which we used up to get more and more amount of heat, energy, and light, that is called as the fuel. Got my point? Now you can relate your things with the fuel, that what can be a fuel. So we can say that the fuel is the substance, or a particular combustible substance, which undergo the combustion, so that we get a large amount of energy from it, along with heat, that we can say that along with heat and light also, when it is burned. Got my point? Like, we can say, like kerosene oil is a fuel. So what is a fuel, student? We can say it is a type of the substance which is used to release large amount of energy along with heat and light, when it is burned. Okay, like when we put them on fire, when we burn them, so after burning process we get a large amount of energy from it, along with heat and light. For example, I have told you that we used to put some of the kerosene oil first of all, so that they will catch up the fire easily. That is why, student, kerosene oil is a kind of the fuel. Even the wood is also a fuel, because it undergoes the combustion. But the thing, the difference comes here, that the ignition temperature. Students, do you know, like, do you remember what is the ignition temperature? Think about it. What's the ignition temperature? We have discussed it so many times, like in the first session also, in the second session of this video, of this chapter also, that the ignition temperature, we can say that it is the lowest amount, or not the lowest amount, sorry, it is the lowest or the minimum temperature at which any particular substance catches fire. And we have discussed this thing also by comparing some of the ignition temperature, that we have seen that the woods are having more ignition temperature as compared to the ignition temperature of petrol or diesel, due to which petrol and diesel catches fire very easily, whereas wood takes some time. Even though I have shown you one video also related to it. Do you remember that video? Yes, students. So that's the thing. So what is the fuel? Fuel is a it is a type of the substances which undergo the combustion and produces large amount of heat, and we can say that light also. And see, students, we can say that the wood is one of the most used fuel, because it is easily available, and also it is having the low cost. But like, if I ask you one thing, that it is justifiable to use this amount of wood, like we use so much amount of wood, so it is justifiable to use that wood, because you can imagine that wood is coming from what source? Wood is coming from where? Woods are coming from the trees. That means we are cutting down the trees so that we can get benefit from it. So do you really think that cutting down the trees is the correct thing or the appropriate thing, or it will be a benefit thing for us? Exactly, no, students. That is why using of wood that much should not be there, because by cutting down the trees we are getting woods, but the cutting down of trees is not good for our environment, even for our earth also. That means deforestation is increasing. So that's why you'll say that ma'am has gone to some another track, but no, it's not like that. I just want to convey one thought to you, that yes, wood is one of the easiest fuel which we are having, even though at the low cost and even though easily available. But try to use alternate of it, that we use sometimes. Nowadays we are having lpgs or gas stoves in our houses, but about many time, a long year ago, if we talk about, so generally people use wood even for cooking of food. Okay, so that's how student, because from wood, you know that from wood papers are also manufacturing, our furnitures are also manufacturing, and then we are using it as a fuel also. So you can imagine that how much amount of wood is going to be consumed, if that, and the consumption of the wood is just equal to the cutting down of the trees. So that's the thing. Now coming to our point, that is fuel we are talking about. So students, there are different type of fuels as well. That if we talk about fuel, so there are different type of fuels. That in the picture you can see that there are three type of fuels: solid, liquid and gas. So in the solid part, that are solid in nature, they come under the category of solid fuel. For example, wood is first of all is there, coil is there, cow dung cake is there. Okay, liquid one, like I have already told you, this is the kerosene one. So the wood logs are the solid thing, and the kerosene oil is a liquid fuel. Okay, and coming to the gas, that means which we are getting in the form of the gas. For example, natural gas, biogas. You know, students, biogas and natural gas, from where we get it. So students, natural gas formed along with petroleum, like in your chapter coil and petroleum, do you remember like how we have, like, do you know this thing that how petroleum is formed? Like it is a long process that it takes 300 or more than that million of years, so that there is the formation of petroleum from the dead remainings of the animals, and then it is how it converts into petroleum along with the natural gas. So that's how we obtain natural gas, and when then we use these natural gas as the fuels. These natural gas, that means we liquefy this gas and we get lpg, and lpg we use in our houses for the cooking purpose, so it is a fuel. And then petroleum has been refined to many things, and one of its refining product is kerosene oil. And you know this thing that the kerosene oil is used up, petrol is used up, diesel is used up. So many things we are getting as a fuel from them, from the chapter of coil and petroleum, if you remember, my students. Okay, now biogas. You know from which biogas is formed? Biogas is formed that when the animal wastage or that kind of wastage has been collected at one particular area, so what will happen after their degradation, or the correct word can be fermentation, I think so. So what will happen, that there will be the evolution of the gas, and that gas has been collected in one part, and that's how it formed as the biogas. Why we are calling it as a biogas? Because it is forming from the biological product, we can say that. Okay, so that's how, students. So these are the three different types of fuels which we are having, that is the solid, liquid and gas. I hope you got these points. Okay. Now students, like if we see, uh, when, like, okay, we'll just repeat that example again, that whenever we are using wood logs so that we can get heat from it in winter season, but after getting heat from it and after enjoying that particular part, you remember that, okay, in my house what happened na, कि जब भी हम ऐसे करके बैठते हैं, so we used to eat peanuts along with it. Okay, so that we are enjoying it, or we are listening music, or we are talking with each other, so it's a kind of small get together, or it is a kind of way so that we can interact with our family more and more. Okay, but now after all of this enjoyment, what you find out that when all of the wood has been has been burnt up, and everyone is trying to go to sleep, what do you find that after the combustion of those wood logs, there is what? There are ashes. That means we are getting some residue from it. So students, there are some of the points which we should keep in our mind, that it should be a good fuel. Okay, it should not be it should not be a kind of thing that which is getting some residue after burning process. For example, student, like before many years ago, I have heard one of the news that in the winter season there was one family, and they are not having any electrical heater, and it was very cold at that time. So what they do, that they use up that campfire in their home, inside their room, and that is called as the angiti. Okay, so what they do, that they put up some of the coil or wood over it, and what happened that by applying it, they just go to sleep, and that's how there will be a release of gas from it. And when the like releasing from it, there is, and there will be and they all were sleeping, like father, mother, and their children, they all were sleeping. And after some time, like when all of the gas has been in all of their atmosphere in their house, that gas created a suffocation, and due to which they all were dead because of that suffocation, because the gases which are releasing from it, because from the combustion, you remember students, like from combustion what we get carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide is not good for the respiration process. And that's how, when all of the atmosphere is having carbon dioxide only, so students, can you imagine that if they are sleeping and the carbon dioxide is all around them, so they are not getting oxygen for breathing purpose. Okay, and that's how they get suffocated, and that's how they can't breathe. And if they were are not able to, if they were not able to breathe at that time, so you can imagine that what's the next thing, that they were not going to wake up the next morning. So that's the news. So student, that's the reason that we should keep in our mind that all of these things should not be there for our fuel. They should be a kind of thing that they are having some characteristics of the good fuel. So now, like listening my stories, I hope you can imagine that what can be the characteristics of the good fuel. So we are going to discuss some of the characteristics of the good fuel. I hope my students, you are not getting bored of it. Characteristics of good fuel. Okay, so students, like starting with it, like first of all, which I have already mentioned when I was telling you that story of one of the family. So it's just that there should not be emission of the poisonous gases or toxic gases. Exactly. So not not emit out poisonous or toxic gases, such as carbon dioxide. See student, carbon dioxide is not poisonous in nature, but it's just that if it is available in our atmosphere at a very large amount as compared to oxygen, so we are inhaling it, and that carbon dioxide, what will happen, that we can't we release carbon dioxide and we inhale oxygen. We are not getting oxygen at that point, so you can imagine that thing. Okay, so it's carbon dioxide, and carbon monoxide is poisonous in nature. Okay, so that's the characteristic of a good fuel, that it should not emit out such type of poisonous or toxic gases. Okay, now what can be the another thing? That it should be clean in nature. Clean. That means no residue should be there. Like after the burning has been done, so no residue will be there. For example, like I have already told you that when after the whole of the thing has been completed, and after that that wood has been converted into ash, that means there should be no formation of the ash. It should be a clean thing. And even the student, now it's like that it should produce a large amount of heat, because why we are using fuel, so that we can get large amount of heat from it. Large amount of heat should be formed. That means we can say that it should have high calorific value. We'll discuss what is the caloric value, don't worry about it, but you just remember for one thing that it should give large amount of heat. That means it should have a high calorific value. Okay, now what's the next thing about the characteristic of good fuel, if I want to ask you? It should be easily available. If it is not easily available, so how we are going to use it up? Exactly, easily available, and it should be cheap. If it is be like, if that fuel is not cheap in nature, or if it is costly, so how we are getting benefit from it? Exactly. And these are the some things. And even though, yes, ignition temperature, it should have moderate ignition temperature. Why I'm saying that moderate ignition temperature? IT, remember, IT, ignition temperature. Because students, what happened now, that were like, for example, coil are having a very high ignition temperature, due to which they do not get easily catches fire. So we don't want such type of fuel which take long time to catch fire. And even though we don't want such fuel which can easily, like, we are just giving them fire and they catches fire very easily. We don't want such fuel. We want such type of fuel which are having moderate ignition temperature, so that we can use them wisely. Got my point? So these are some of the characteristics of good fuel. And one of the last, that it should be easily transportable. Easily transportable. Fine, students. So these are the characteristics of the good fuel, and I hope you all also agree with me that yes, these can be the characteristics of the good fuel. And even though, student, if you find any such particular point for the characteristics of it, you can also add it from your side. Okay, it's not like that these are the fixed, but it's just that what I feel it should. I have written here residues. I already that it's happened. It happened with me. Okay, so you can also see here, it's like characteristics of good fuel: cheap, easily available, readily combustible. Why readily combustible? That I have written a moderate ignition temperature. High calorific value, that means it should give large amount of heat. Does not produce harmful gases or residue that pollute the environment. Exactly, if there are harmful gases, so what is there? They are causing the pollution to the environment. Because, student, what happened na, that due to the release of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere at a high rate, the temperature of the earth is decreasing. And if the temperature is decreasing, the glaciers are melting, and that is the cause of the global warming. And you know this thing, that the global warming is one of the like the topic which is going on. Okay, debate, it is a debating topic about, like, for the global warming. So it should not to emit out such harmful gases, so that there will be the pollution in the environment. So they should be pollution free. Okay, it should not create such type of ashes or residues. Fine. So the that is called as fuel, and these are the characteristics of good fuel. Now we are going to discuss some other things. For example, okay, these are the fuels. So you can see in the picture, it is the cylinder is there, like cylinder, you know that the gas cylinder is having the LPG which we are using in our houses, in our kitchen for cooking food. So that LPG is also a fuel. So students, okay, before going to the further further topic, so I want to ask you some of the name of the fuels. Like, we have discussed solid and everything, so it's like LPG is there, CNG is there, kerosene, petrol, diesel, wood, and what else, coil, and what else? So these all are fuels which we are having. Okay, coming to our next point, which is called as the fuel efficiency. See, student, like, yes, we are having all of the fuels. So the same thing was like, whenever we have to see for the ignition temperature, so it's just that all of the materials are all of the substances are not having same ignition temperature. They all are having different ignition temperature. Exactly. So that's how the fuel are also having their different efficiency. Okay, so the fuel efficiency, what is that? It is the amount of energy released per unit mass. That means if you are burning 1 kilogram of the fuel, and the heat which is involving from out it, or the amount of energy from you that you are getting from it, it is called as the fuel efficiency. If, okay, I'll take one of the example here. Yeah, we'll see that video also. Okay, we are having two fuels, for example A and B. These are the two fuels and we have take up the 1 kilogram of each of them. Okay, and now we are burning it, and like the amount of energy, see student, the energy which we get and we measure it in the form of the kilojoules. That means kj, kilojoules. So by burning the 1 kilogram of the A substance, we are getting 500 kilojoule of energy, and by burning the 1 kilogram of the B, we are getting 250 kilojoule. So you can see that which is releasing more amount of energy. A is releasing more amount of energy. That means the fuel efficiency of A, its fuel efficiency is more as compared to the fuel efficiency of B, because it is releasing more amount of energy. Exactly student, like the substance which produces the more amount of energy per unit mass, like the mass means that we can say that the amount which we are taking of that particular fuel, that if we are taking 1 kg, 2 kg, 3 kg, so the amount of the heat which we are getting from the burning of that 3 kg of the fuel, that is called it as fuel efficiency. So the fuel efficiency for the A is greater as compared to B, because it is giving more amount of heat, more amount of energy as compared to B. Okay, even though we are taking their equal amount, then also A is producing more heat. So that is why more heat, we can say that more energy. That is why the fuel efficiency of A is more. So what is the fuel efficiency, students? We can say that fuel efficiency, it is the amount of energy per unit mass. Amount of energy per unit mass. Okay, this is the fuel efficiency. Now coming to one of our topic, that is called as the calorific value. Now what is the calorific value? So I'll show you now one of this video. So are you ready, my students? So we are going to look at this video.
Fuels are important source of energy. We use petrol or diesel for driving car, LPG for cooking food, crude oil for flying an airplane, and wood to provide warmth. All these are fuels. All fuels do not burn efficiently. Fuel efficiency is determined by its calorific value. The amount of heat energy produced on complete combustion of 1 kg of a fuel is called its calorific value.
So student, have you heard this thing that all of the fuels are not having efficiently they burn. So they all are having different calorific value. So the calorific value, what's the definition for the calorific value? So we can say that the calorific value is that value which we can see that it is that amount of energy which we are getting when 1 kilogram of the fuel is burned. Okay, when 1 kilogram of fuel is burned. So we can say that the amount of energy is releasing from the 1 kilogram of the fuel. Okay, I'll just write down this definition again so that my students can get it. Just a second. Yeah, so it's the calorific value is the amount of energy releasing on burning 1 kilogram of fuel. So student, don't get confused between the fuel efficiency. Fuel efficiency is that it should be having any mass, like per unit mass. You can say that per unit mass is also called as the 1 kilogram per unit mass, and the calorific value is also that the amount of energy which is releasing by burning 1 kilogram of fuel. So calorific value tells the fuel efficiency. Got my point? That if the calorific value is high, then the fuel efficiency will be high, then only we are getting more amount of energy. Got my point? So that is why calorific value can be given as the kilogram per kilojoule. Oh, sorry, I have written it vice versa. Sorry, it's that kilojoule per kilogram, because it is the amount of energy releasing on burning of 1 kilogram of fuel, or the amount of energy per unit mass. It's just that calorific value is decided when we take one kilogram of each and every fuel, and then we see that on burning, that all of these fuels giving how much amount of energy, and then on that base that of that calorific value, we decide that which one of those fuel is having more fuel efficiency. That means which fuel can burn and can give more amount of heat easily. That is the fuel efficiency. Got my point? Okay, so continuing with this video.
And it is expressed in a unit called kilojoule per kg. Calorific value of LPG is more than wood or coal. That is why LPG is more efficient fuel than wood or coal.
So students,
Fuels.
you got this point, like the LPG which we are using in our houses, they are having more calorific value. If they are having more calorific value, that means they will burn easily and that they will give more amount of heat. Okay, more amount of energy. That is why they are more efficient fuel as compared to wood and log. For example, I have already told you this thing that many time long year ago, when we are not having LPGs or gas cylinder, people generally used to cook food over the wood logs. But wood logs is not considered as a good fuel because it release poisonous gas, it release ashes also, so that we find out the alternate of it. Okay, so that we don't have pollution in our environment, we don't have any residue, because from like that ash, where it is going into water directly. Okay, when we wash our utensils or something like that, or we are removing that ash from there, so where we are throwing it, we are throwing it in water, so it is causing both type of pollution, air pollution and water pollution both. So that's why we find out the alternate, that is the LPG, and from that we come to know, okay, like burning the 1 kilogram of LPG and burning the 1 kilogram of what, the more amount of heat we are getting from LPG, and even though LPG is not causing such type of pollution, so that is why we consider the LPG as the more efficient fuel as compared to wood and coal. That's why students, the fuel efficiency of the LPG is more because its calorific value is more. And what's the calorific value? It's the amount of energy releasing by burning the 1 kilogram of wood, sorry, 1 kilogram of fuel. Okay, so that's the point, students. You can see the amount of energy produced on complete combustion. Yeah, don't forget this word, on complete combustion. It should not be an incomplete combustion, like half of the wood has been burned out but half is left, so it's not a complete, like after complete combustion we see that okay, we are getting this much amount of energy by burning 1 kilogram of fuel. That's called its calorific value, and it expressed in kilojoule per kilogram. And I have already told you what's the significance of it. It is the small k and capital J, kilojoule per kilogram. And kilogram, you all are aware of it, kilogram. Okay, and calorific value is directly proportional to its efficiency, that is the fuel efficiency. You know what is directly proportional, students? Like if one thing is increasing, so the another thing is also going to be increased, and if that particular thing is going to be decreased, so the another thing is also going to be decreased. That is called as the directly proportional. That means if the calorific value is increasing, so we can say that fuel efficiency will also increase, and if the calorific value is less, then the fuel efficiency is also less. For example, I have given you already that example is there. Just a second. That A and B, on the complete combustion of these two fuel, when we have taken 1 kg of it, in this case we are getting 500 kilojoule of energy, and in this case we are getting this much of energy. So we can say that the calorific value of this A is 500 kilojoule per kg, and for this B it is 250 kilojoule per kg. So which is having more calorific value, it's A, and that is why its fuel efficiency is more. That means it will burn efficiently as compared to B, and we get more amount of heat from A, or energy. So that's how we decide the calorific value and fuel efficiency. So the question is, how is the calorific value of a fuel expressed? That in what way you express the calorific value? We have just discussed it right now. It's kilojoule per kilogram, that how much of the energy is releasing after the complete combustion. Don't forget to mention that thing, after the complete combustion of 1 kilogram of fuel, that is called as the calorific value. If you are writing that you are writing on complete combustion of 2 kilogram of fuel, it is going to be incorrect. Calorific value is mentioned always when we have taken the unit mass of that particular fuel. For example, 1 kilogram, unit means 1. Okay, so it expressed in kilojoule per kilogram. Calorific value is defined as the energy contained in the fuel. It is expressed in form kilojoule per kilogram. Kj is kilojoules, kg is kilogram. Got my point, students? So by completing this topic of calorific value or fuel efficiency, we have done with this chapter, and I hope my student have understood each and everything very well, and I hope you are getting each and everything from this chapter as well. Okay, so like we have done each and everything from this chapter, and yes student, I just want to convey this thing to you, that if after watching this video any question, any query comes to your mind, you can directly post your question on the forum, on public forum or on a private forum depending upon the conditions. So you can put up your question there and you can get your answer easily. Got it? Because sometimes it happened that we have question but we don't find it correct answer, even though on Google we are having Google. But you, for that situation, you can put up your question over the forum and you'll get the answer from the expert side as as soon as possible. Okay, so please listen all these video carefully and complete your chapter and study more and more. And thank you everyone.